Hello there, lovely people. This is me, Ashley, here, sending my love to you from whatever reality I'm in today to whatever reality you find yourself in. Well, over the past I'd say about 2 weeks, some strange things have been going on. I mean, obviously, we're Mandela affected, so there's always strange things going on. But a few weeks ago, I noticed that, well, in fact, a friend of mine showed me that on the 10 Downing Street emblem, which is normally the same emblem as the royal family, the Queen, except it doesn't have the little crown on the crown at the top. But underneath it says Dieu et mon droit. Sorry about my French. And it means God and my right. God and my right in French. Now, it disappeared off the Downing Street logo. And I have tried to find out why. No explanation anywhere. No explanation anywhere. Anyway, later on, the same crest, the royal crest, was taken off the gates at Buckingham Palace. Now, the explanation is that a lorry hit it and it had to be taken away to be repaired. Well, not really sure how a lorry hit the gates of Buckingham Palace, and I'm not sure how a lorry hit the gates of Buckingham Palace and only managed to damage the emblem. There's no damage to the gate in any way, shape or form to indicate that there's been a crash for the emblem to be removed in the first place. So this also got me thinking about the fact that over the last few months, apparently, I'm not entirely sure because I'm not American, but apparently when President Trump is speaking, there's some words have been missed or taken away from on the podium, something to do with the Constitution, but I'm not entirely sure. Please let me know in the links below if you know what I'm talking about, because I'm sorry, I'm not American, so I can't really remember what the words were, but I seem to remember them being really quite important, and they've disappeared. So anyway, this is where it gets really freaky, because a few weeks ago, well, in fact, for quite some time, I've been seeing this thing about Britain's real king, Britain's real king, King John III. And he's an Australian, and apparently he's related to the royal family, and he recently actually applied in court for he applied in court to become king. Now, I think he's I think he's a bit mental, to be fair. I do. I think he's mental, because he also states that he's got the he claims that he's Christ. He says that he's got the name Christ. I'll read to you in a minute what he actually says, but he also links the fact that on Easter, at Easter, he says that the Pope recognised him as Christ, as, you know, obviously, I mean, quite a lot of you know that the Pope stopped being the Vicar of Christ, which basically means that he isn't God's representative on earth anymore. Now, also, there'll be some of you out there that don't know this, but this Pope has been predicted to be the last Pope by Saint Malachi, I think it was, who predicted every Pope from like 1,000 years ago. He's predicted every Pope until this one, and this is the last one. So, and this last Pope, he's been doing all kinds of things, like, you know, he has. He's, never mind the satanic stuff, he's actually given up that title of the Vicar of Christ. He's changed the Lord's Prayer because he made it sound like, forgive us our trespasses. Oh, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. He changed that because he didn't like the way it made it sound like God's leading us into temptation. So there is the Pope knowing more than God, because let's remember that the actual Lord's Prayer was given to humanity by Jesus. When the disciples asked, how do we pray? He told them the Lord's Prayer. And here's this Pope deciding that he knows better than God, and he's changed the words. But what gets to me is that, I mean, bear in mind, I do still think this man's a raving lunatic. I'm not saying he's real, because his claim is based on the fact that it's based on the fact that Anne Boleyn wasn't actually murdered, and that she went on to have other children. She went on to have other children, of which he's descended from. But what really gets to me is he says he says that he is descended from Walter Raleigh, who is from Anne Boleyn. Now, Walter Raleigh was actually around during Queen Elizabeth's time. That's when he was. So that, that's in my... See, this is where I'm getting all mixed up now, because is it that reality? Is it different reality? Or is it just bollocks? See, this is the kind of shit I don't... Because at the moment, my reality is still exactly the same for Anne Boleyn. But let's face it, if it really is the way this man's saying, we're not going to find any evidence online of her having survived. However, in my timeline, Sir Walter Raleigh could never have been her grandson. Because he just wasn't. Because he just wasn't. Anyway, this man is actually called Joseph Gregory Hallett. And I want to tell you what he has to say. Okay? Now, I'm only giving this any credence at all because of the situation of the royal motto being removed from Downing Street logo, and also the actual it being removed from Buckingham Palace with a ridiculous excuse as to why. Right, so this is what King John III has to say. Now, to carry the title of King John III of England or any related aspect, you have to be the San Graal or Christ, but only the San Graal can hold the title of King John of England. And because my San Graal go from the Duchy of Saxe-Coburg, Gotha, which is 2% of Germany, got 13 castles, including the old Parliament building, and the old Parliament, and gave me King of England and said, go to England, take your chances, right? So, part there. Oh, right, and then he goes on to explain about how he's sent the actual legal documentation to the Queen and Donald Trump and Putin. So he says part them to the respondents, which includes the Queen. So what the beauty of that was, I'd sent them to POTUS, their president, Donald Trump, and I sent them to the Queen. So POTUS would get them a few days after the Queen, and he'd ring up the Queen or contact the Queen through, diplomatic channels, and say, is this true? Is there any bit of this that you want to deny? She'd just be that she couldn't deny it. So she went into hiding, and Trump took over the British Empire until I move in, basically, is what's happening. This is what this man's saying. He's saying that because the Queen hasn't been able to deny all of these things publicly, it means it's real, and that the Queen's gone into hiding and Trump is now running the British Empire until King John III is allowed to come and be in Buckingham Palace. Then this is all actually going on. This conversation is going on a channel on YouTube, and it's an interview with this man with two other people, and they start to talk about Trump and Q and things like that. And then King John carries on. It's fantastic. It's fantastic, crazy work. Together, and like you were talking off screen about relative, and he keeps talking about this relative, being a 33-degree Mason living on Malta. So what I managed to do with the title of Christ was to execute the Knights of Malta out of the Vatican, and they're in charge of the world's money supply. And then Trump took notice of that because it's on my documents, and that happened, and at that exact same time that I did it in 2014, but it happened from election day 2016 to his inauguration, the 20th of January 2017, like simultaneously. So here is this man saying that he, when he says executed the Knights of Malta, I don't think he means actually executed. I think he just means their position. And he took over the world's money supply because they were in charge of the world's money supply. So then Trump has taken over that, right? Yeah, simultaneously on his inauguration day, Trump took over that. And apparently he's, there we go. And that allowed President Donald Trump to absorb the Fed into the Treasury with him as the Treasury head of the Treasury, right? So I've achieved that. And the Vatican is now no longer in control of the money supply. And I am a firm, confirmed, certified with the title of Christ by the Pope, who named me on Easter Friday, who's then done an action on Easter Friday, and then before that he's closed down the whole world for Lent, and that means I own everything that the Vatican does, and he also abdicated his title Vicar of Christ. So I'm currently the owner of the world. Oh dear, dear, dear. And then he goes on to claim that the French Royal Navy come up to me and say we're absolutely sick of transporting the Queen's heroin around, but that's all we do. And then he says, people say, when is it happening? When is it happening? And I'm going, it just happened like 5 minutes ago. Taking the emblem off the palace, taking the emblem off 10 Downing Street, and photo montaging my emblem on there, and people going, is that real? Is that real? So they took it off so that I could do that. So he's now claiming that they took the royal emblem off the palace gate so that he could superimpose his own emblem onto it. That's what he's claiming there, right? And then he goes on to say how it's just been renovated for him, and that he can go out on his carriage, and that he doesn't have to smell the smell of the paint until it's all done up. But, as I said, I would not... Oh, I'm sorry, Dee. Sorry there, love. As I said, I would not normally give that any credence whatsoever, because it sounds like, I mean, the man is actually declaring himself Jesus Christ. He's declaring that the Pope has acknowledged that he's the Messiah. He's calling himself the Messiah. He actually calls himself the Messiah, used the words the Messiah in some other part of it. And, you know, it's like, if the words hadn't have gone off the Downing Street, I mean, they're there, they've been there forever. It's like, it's part of who we are as Britain, and it's been taken off the British Parliament, the British 10 Downing Street logo, and the actual thing's been taken off the gates with no real sign of any actual crash. So right now, I haven't got a bloody clue what's going on. All I know is that, according to this man, Anne Boleyn didn't die, and like if I wasn't Mandela affected, I'd just be laughing that out of the window. But I am Mandela affected, and the logo has changed. The words have gone. It says God and my right. God and my right. Why would they take those words off? Why would they take those words off? They're the royal words. Why? Why? You know, so there's something going down. There's definitely something going down, but do we really have a King John III, the Messiah, aided and abetted by none other than Donald Trump? But, you know, to be quite frank with you, I'm Mandela affected, and stranger things are happening right now, so I don't know. But if this man is claiming to be the Messiah, we're going to have to just see what happens. It's just that I found it very, like I said, I wouldn't give me credence at all if it hadn't been for the Dieu et mon droit being taken, God and my right being taken off the royal emblem of the British 10 Downing Street. And indeed, the whole thing taken off the Buckingham Palace. And President Trump and the podium there, where important words have been removed from that as well. So, do you know anything about it? Do you know anything about either of these stories? I mean, I have seen all his legal paperwork, but it only proves his side. It doesn't, what he's saying, it doesn't prove, there's nothing there to say that anybody agrees with it. And he had posted a thing with the Pope, but it didn't really sound like it was talking about him. I don't know. But it has made me inquire, it's made me think, and I wanted to know what you thought. Do you know anything about this whatsoever? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below, please. Anyway, lovely people, thank you so very much for everything that you do for me, sharing your wisdom, your thoughts, you set me off on paths that that lead me to better places. And I really thank you for that from the bottom of my heart. I couldn't do it without you. So until next time, my love to you all.